what is kind of like one thing that you're excited about or looking forward to this year at Avalanche?
Yeah, I think I have one major piece, which is what I alluded to earlier, beyond the walls of DeFi. So I think one of the main opportunities that Avalanche has is to scale all these applications that need scalability and also fast transaction finality as the main, I guess, feature sets for their users. And the last few quarters since mainnet launch, we've definitely been trying to button up the platform, both on the development side, so the experience is as seamless as possible, but then also on the user side. And it's not only limited to those two audiences, but I would say those are the two main ones. And of course, DeFi is familiar to a lot of us because we all come from various backgrounds within the space. And so that seemed like the natural step forward. But also what we're seeing, and I'm sure John can maybe touch on this at a high level, but we're getting a lot of interest from the institution enterprise side. And I know for the last, let's say, like 3 to 5 years, that narrative has kind of come and gone multiple times over and over within the space. But now with the subnet functionality that's coming on Avalanche, or rather going to be live on Avalanche later this year, something has kind of clicked in the heads of the key decision makers on that side. And so a lot of the discussion, instead of it being like, okay, here's what you can build, let's start building it, and here's the timeline in which the deployment will go live on mainnet. Instead, with the enterprises themselves, it's a little bit more of a delicate process because we first have to educate the team itself on how the platform works and also why their use cases should be on a public chain or perhaps even built off of a public blockchain like Avalanche's, and then what that means to the end user. And a lot of these conversations are saying, hey, we don't care about the protocol and all the technology at the front and center, perhaps like the DeFi folks do, but instead we want to leverage the power of Avalanche while retaining the same user experience that you all see in Web 2. And that's something that also requires a little bit of a delicate approach, especially on the product side. So the excitement comes from a lot of these conversations are actually clicking, and finally, I think from everyone in the space that has been around the block for a while is kind of like, okay, I think I'm seeing these signals and these positive signals finally, and it's not just the media saying the institution's coming, but it's actually these institutional players coming forth themselves and saying, hey, we're partnering with this decentralized product or decentralized team, and that's what's really exciting for me.
Yeah, great point. I think there's two things going on here. One is institutional interest for actually buying into, investing into crypto, and the second piece is actually onboarding blockchain technology for their own operations. John, are you around?
Yeah.
What do you? Okay, great.
Let me. I guess I'll jump in. There's I think 3 things that I want to touch on to kind of build on what Jay was saying too, right? What kind of excites me is exactly what Jay was saying, right? Like we have a lot of things happening in DeFi, but we also have a lot of other things. And, for all of us that are in this space, we know that in the crypto world, 2 to 3 weeks or can seem like an eternity or 2 to 3 months. That's kind of short term. But on the enterprise or the institutional side, 6 to 12 months is short term, right? So what you see kind of happening on the day to day now is kind of the labor of our work from anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks ago, right? That had to go through product, that had to go through development, that had to do some level of integration or development work to go live now. So there's always that kind of lag. So kind of what you're seeing now is what was done 2-3 months ago. And some things were 2-3 months ago and some things were 6 months ago, right? So it is that kind of convergence now of things that are going to start to come out more and more that excites me because like Jay said, right, on the DeFi side, on the crypto side, super cool and exciting. That's where all the innovation is. But, if all of us are in this space because we believe in, blockchain and cryptocurrencies and the way to really transform things and decentralization. But that happens truthfully 2 ways, right? It happens in DeFi and crypto kind of innovating from the outside and finding your way into the system, but also innovating from within, right? Going into these archaic or old or kind of rigid systems and establishments or enterprises, and really kind of decentralizing the way they do things, or using our technology to kind of make it better, right? And that, of course, takes a lot longer than a decentralized application or anything of that nature. So I think where you're going to start to see, and that's exciting to me, is kind of how Avalanche is being used in both applications, how there's going to eventually and ultimately, I think, be a convergence where you see something happen in DeFi, but then you see something kind of similar to that, right, happening on the enterprise side, where someone, integrates Avalanche to solve a problem that you normally maybe don't even think about, right? Something that I always joke around about and talking about, and Jay and I actually were discussing this in a previous Clubhouse, is, nobody really knows or cares how their money moves around at a bank. Nobody knows about a FedWire or SEPA or ACH or SWIFT. They just know they click a button and it happens. So, building on what Jay said, ultimately you're going to start to see things that you're used to doing at a bank or at a firm or at a whatever big company, be kind of automated with smart contracts or become more efficient by utilizing Avalanche or blockchain in general, right? So I think that kind of convergence is what's really exciting to me. I think all the things we have in the pipeline, 6, 8, 12, 18 weeks down the line that are going to start to come out more and more are beneficial, because, I think like a lot of others in this space, there's always a need to kind of push for more. What I love about this firm and this team mostly is that, I joined right before mainnet launch, and the first and foremost focus of the team was deploying mainnet, was the product, was the platform, right? It wasn't the partnerships. Of course, there was exchanges that needed to list the token, but all of the BD, all of the partnerships, everything came after the key critical piece, which is Avalanche was launched and launched successfully. And we've been able to capitalize on that success and that growth by building on top of it with partnerships and things. So, there's always a kind of a delay in a lead time, but super stoked to see what happens next.
Nice. Excellent. Gab, are you with us?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Nice. Okay,
Nice.
welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was nice hearing you guys talk. I got inspired just by your answers, so great job. My name is Gabriel Cardona. I am developer evangelist at Ava Labs. I joined right around this time, same time Jay did. I think I joined maybe a couple weeks after him. So I've been on the team about a year, and I've been in the blockchain space now for several years. I got my first BTC from Gavin's Faucet way back in 2011. So I've been around for multiple waves of innovation, from BTC to Ethereum and so forth. And my intuition is that Ava Labs and Avalanche are a very significant milestone. We throw around the term blockchain 3.0, and I think it's more than a buzzword. I really do believe that Avalanche consensus is that significant. Nakamoto consensus was blockchain 1.0, Ethereum was blockchain 2.0, and I really do believe that Avalanche is a big enough paradigm shift where we can call it blockchain 3.0. And so I think the general question was sort of what is inspiring to me right now, or what do I see coming that's going to be inspiring? And I think, so first off, if you kind of zoom back a little bit, one of the analogies I have been using is that Avalanche consensus is akin to Ajax. So if anybody is a web developer, they remember that in 1998, 1999, there was a huge dot-com bubble. Basically, the people who were, computer scientists, academics, entrepreneurs, they all sort of understood that the web was very significant and that it was going to change everything. And so there was a huge wave of money that rushed in. This is 98, 99. People kind of realized, oh, wait a second, I don't think the web is mature enough, guys. I don't think it's ready. And so the bubble popped, and a lot of money rushed out in 2000, 2001. But that didn't stop the web, right? The web continued to churn right along. It did, in fact, mature, and that happened around 2004 or so when this technology called Ajax, asynchronous JavaScript and XML, was sort of discovered. It had been around for a while, but somebody cleverly figured out how to use it in a clever way, and that kind of kicked off Web 2.0. And so with Web 2.0, we got the beginnings of mobile, we got social networks, we got Google really catching fire, and so the timeline was 98, 99, smart people knew it was going to change the world, tons of money showed up, 2000, 2001, the bubble popped, a bunch of money left, smart people continued to work hard. 2004, it hit a coming of age moment with Ajax, and then the rest is history. And so I believe the same thing with blockchain. I mean, people, going all the way back to Nakamoto consensus, it was very clear that this was a genuine computer science breakthrough, that this was going to revolutionize everything. Tons of money rushed in. People started playing around with it and realized, hey, you guys, I don't think this is ready yet. A bunch of money rushed out. Smart and hardworking people continued to do their thing, and now Avalanche consensus emerges. And this really is akin to Ajax in the sense that it's a coming of age moment for the blockchain. All of these point of sale worldwide opportunities that were just not able to be to happen yet because the Nakamoto consensus just isn't fast enough are now going to be possible. So in one sense, I think what's exciting is simply that we are witnessing the coming of age of the blockchain. I think this is it. Starting now, going forward, we're going to see genuine adoption from the entire world. So regardless of what the price does, it may spike, it may crash. And decoupled from that, I think that we finally did it. So congratulations to everybody. I expect it's just genuine use cases are going to happen now. And then some other things which I think are very exciting are the way that the blockchain Avalanche is going to work in concert with the decentralized web stack. So Filecoin and IPFS and libp2p. And then together, we're going to be able to create an entirely new web, a censorship-resistant web, because as we move into this hyper-connected world, it's going to be censorship-resistant is going to be more and more important, and we already see it with people getting deplatformed. And independent of how you feel about the person who got taken off of Twitter, whether you like what he or she says or not, it's a significant deal that we're able to be censored in that way. So we need a censorship-resistant web, and we're empowering that with Avalanche. And then one last point, and I'll pass the mic back, is that I forget the name. Somebody here can probably tell me, but just recently a Mexican state announced that they were going to be storing their assets on chain. And whenever you get arrested in Mexico or something, all of the publicly available, data regarding your case will be effectively stored on chain in a way that there's going to be a QR code available, and you'll be able to confirm that the different pieces of evidence that are presented in court or along the entire legal journey match what was originally collected by the police. The reason I mention that is because the blockchain has the ability to revolutionize the way we fund politicians, for example. If we could keep track of all of the money that went in, we would know exactly where everything was going. So I think we're moving into this world where ethical behavior will be forced upon the people in charge simply because the technology exists, and if for no other reason than they won't be able to get around it. People will have to start acting more ethically simply because everything is going to be completely transparent. So I think that's some ideas there to toss out.
Nice. Thanks, Gab. So kind of want to take a couple of seconds and see if are there any questions from the room. It would be lovely to hear from you guys. Please do raise your hands if you have a question. No questions? Nothing so far? Okay, wait 1 second. Yep.
Great content. I don't know too much about Avalanche. I'm just kind of excited about one idea that I read on the internet, which was funding litigation, and for people that can't necessarily afford it. Could you tell us a little bit about that? I'm very intrigued about that.
You want to take that one, Jay?
Yeah, sure. We have so one of the main solutions that we've been working on the last couple of quarters is with Republic and Roche, a legal firm, to try and tokenize the litigation funding process. And so that's something that Republic is kind of our tech partners there alongside ourselves, and that's something that's under construction currently, not available for use quite yet. So the actual kind of like ground level details aren't fully finalized for public consumption. But once we have that finalized, we will definitely let everybody know as to what the details are and how people can start getting involved.
Maybe some more context on that. So to give you kind of the background, if you're gonna go and file a lawsuit, right? If you're an aggrieved party and you have a lawsuit that you want to file against a big corporation or a municipality or whoever it may be, it's going to cost you a lot of money, right? And the traditional way that people who don't have their own funds to kind of back their legal claims, they go to these guys called litigation funders, right? It's usually family offices, hedge funds, or financial firms that take a large, significant cut of a potential settlement or judgment in order to finance your legal fees for you to sue. So what we've been able to do with Republic as a compliance partner, technology partner, is, and like Jay said, more details are going to come out as to specifically how this is going to work for people and what jurisdictions are able to do this and not, is you're in essence crowdfunding somebody's legal claim against someone else. And this, the first case is Apothekio. It's a farm that was kind of seized by a local sheriff. They're suing for damages. They don't, of course, have kind of the capital to defend themselves or to bring that suit to light. So you, in theory, would be crowdfunding that legal defense or legal cost for them.
That's super cool. So would buying the Avalanche token, would that make me an investor in these litigations, or is that a separate?
No, so it's completely separate. So you would not be an investor. You would be kind of a supporter of that project, and that would be a separate token for that project, independent, nothing to do with the Avax token itself.
And I would invest in that with the AVAX token or with dollars, or
that's all I think being worked out still.
Got it. Really awesome, guys. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, so let's take another question from the panel. So I think next is Burcu.
Hi. Thanks for having me here. I have a question. I am working for an IT company since several years. Actually, blockchain is a very popular concept. How can I say? Blockchain is new black. A lot of firms want to understand and use it internally or for business-to-business B2B projects. My question is about using Avalanche for company-wide projects. Is it possible to set up and run an Avalanche application without any crypto, AVAX database, and insert company-related data and query it? Is there any documentation, tutorials, any hands-on material to do this? Thanks.
Who wants to take this question?
Yeah, sure, I can weigh in. So it sounds like you want to be able to store some business information and query it to write it to the chain. You would need to do some type of transaction. So you would need some.
Hey, Gabriel, your mic is a little slow, I think.
If for no other reason, basically, to achieve. I mean, at all.
Kind of.
We couldn't hear what you said earlier. Just
yeah, I apologize. My connection. Sure. So, in order to write to the blockchain, you need to pay a transaction fee, and then in order to read from the blockchain, it's free. So if you wanted to write your business data to the blockchain, even if you want to encrypt it or something, you would need to pay some type of fee. So you would need a small amount of AVAX. Fortunately, our transaction fees are incredibly inexpensive, fractions of a penny for probably what you're describing. But yes, there are lots of tutorials, and we have a I don't know if you're familiar with Ethereum, but in Ethereum there is a Ganache, which is a local simulated blockchain. We have what's called Avash, the Avalanche shell, and it's a full-blown local private network. So you can fire up a local network and get lots of free AVAX because it's local, and you can do all your development there and be very, very hands-on. And we have lots of tutorials. If you go to docs.avax.network, docs.avax.network, That's the full documentation maintained by myself and Jay, and it's up to date, and we have tons of tutorials and everything. If you want to reach out to me out of band here, maybe on Twitter or Telegram or something, I can send you links. But yeah, check out docs.outbox.network. We have everything you need to get started.
Okay, it is super cool. Thanks so much, Gabriel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Burju. Thanks, Gab. Kyle, you're next.
Oh, great. Thanks for Clubhouse, my first participation in a Clubhouse discussion. And I was reading on the Avalanche website about how you can tokenize any asset. And that triggered a series of investigations and inquiries of my own independently. And I've come up with an idea to tokenize a bioregion. And then wed that tokenization to a campaign to create a personhood for the bioregion with the rights of nature. And I'm wondering what your take on this idea is, or whether you think it's conceivable, how it might work, or any comments you might have. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, who wants to take this?
I think maybe John, would you be able to take that?
Yeah, I was going to say, Jay, do you want to get started and I'll piggyback on?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of tokenization, I think there are a lot of different avenues you can take. If you're playing in the United States, you do have to be a little bit careful with the legislation that exists in the regulatory bodies. And so we're taking that caution as serious as possible. And one of the most recent partners that we've decided to join forces with is Securitize, one of the leading security token or digital security companies globally, I would say, but also especially so in the United States. And so it seems like, Kyle, your use case might require the expertise of certain parties. I think there's, of course, a legal involvement there. Perhaps, I think you were saying you were trying to tokenize a region, if I heard correctly, or a piece of land.
Yes, yeah, a whole bioregion.
Got it. And so yeah, so I feel like that does step on the I guess the expertise of a variety of parties. And on the technical side, at least at the very bottom layer where Avalanche fits in, this is where I think we succeed the most. And Avalanche is exactly the solution for that, because of the scalability promise. And also, if you wanted to create your own subnet and you wanted to create customized rules for the tokens that you're deploying, then you can do so. So one of the best examples we give to our institutional clients in the conversations that we have there is saying, hey, if you need to have KYC, AML checks embedded within the tokens, you can have that. If you want to only permit a certain group of people to hold those tokens, you can also have that, or have those tokens interact with other tokens within the ecosystem to just make it as seamless as possible. At the end of the day, the goal of Avalanche is to strive for a seamless experience for both the end user and the builder. I think the idea as a whole, to kind of come to close my point here, is it's definitely still in the early space. So we're trying to create proof of concepts for people just so they can get a lot more comfortable. And in the next couple of quarters, and of course the next couple of years as well, we're going to see a lot of these collaborations and proof of concepts come through the surface. And I think that might be something that might interest you, Kyle, to follow. And perhaps that could give you either an idea of how best to approach your problem statement, or perhaps there's also an opportunity for collaboration there as well.
So Kyle, let me just, for some more clarity for me, when you say like a bioregion, you mean like ownership, like people, it's like pooling together a bunch of people to own a certain piece of real estate or property?
That could be one element of the overall schema, but it's more about basically bringing together stakeholders in a given bioregion. It could be a nonprofit organization like River Keepers or Nature Conservancy, but it also might involve a co-op or a small business association, they would all become stakeholders and be involved in the voting process and the governance. So I don't know if a DAO is involved, probably, and then there would be other mechanisms to use what I would call regenerative DeFi tools to allow people to invest or donate to different projects that basically increase the vitality and enrich the bioregion and everyone living in it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it gives some more color. I mean, so if you have to kind of pick it apart, right? Because ultimately what Avalanche is a technology layer, right? So if you think back, everything, whether ownership or anything else, some things still are analog or paper. Other things became electronic, like you see, Web 2. And now we're in a digital age, and Avalanche kind of gives you that digital aspect. I think, like Jay said, right, there's regulatory aspects there in terms of any kind of ownership that you might have. There might be some things in terms of, so when you talk about stakeholders, like you mentioned, there's a DAO aspect there. So I think it's a kind of multi-pronged, multifaceted kind of scheme that would need to be put together. But plausibly, yes, you could tokenize every aspect of that, right? You can tokenize the ownership. You can tokenize kind of the stakeholders within there who can vote or benefit. So I mean, within that, yeah, you could plausibly create potentially a subnet that represents that kind of situation, and then have layered or different weighted tokens, right? That could plausibly represent each stakeholder at a different level.
Great. Thank you both for your responses. And I certainly like to follow up down the road some. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely do. We'll be receptive for any, I guess, progress that you guys have as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, Özge, you're next.
Hi, everyone. And thank you, Ava Labs team, for organizing this room. It's great to get together with you and ask our questions. So thank you. Well, I have a question for Gab. Earlier, he said we need censorship-resistant web, and Avalanche empowers that. So just to clarify that I understand this, how Avalanche achieves that, and what will be the outcome we are seeing in this area? Like, could you provide some examples? Like some concrete examples, what will be the outcome, how do you achieve that? I think it will be great for people and we're gonna love that, but I want to get more details on that just to clarify that in my mind. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Great question. Thank you. So we currently have an announcement with, I believe it's aleph.im. Jay, please correct me if I'm saying that wrong, or if you know what I'm talking about. Aleph.im, I believe.
Yep, I think that's right.
Yeah, and so they, for example, are like a Amazon of the decentralized web, basically. And then we're in talks with a couple other companies, but these are not public yet. But you can kind of think about, like, right now you fire up a Amazon S3, or you fire up a bucket on Amazon and you store your web assets there. People go out and query it, www.gabriel.com, and then it fetches that image. Now there's this whole new generation of startups which are emerging, which have that exact same user experience, but instead of storing your assets on a bucket on Amazon's cloud, you store it out on the decentralized web. So some mixture of Filecoin and IPFS and libp2p is kind of the tech stack, all from Protocol Labs, which is an absolutely amazing team. And so then you then pay for that, of course, using AVAX token. So, the existing sort of exists today kind of thing is exactly what I described. Storing your assets out on the cloud, on the decentralized web tech stack. So storing assets on Filecoin and IPFS, and then paying for the service using AVAX. And today there is a site, again, please, one of the guys on the team, if you know what I'm talking about, I'm forgetting the name exactly, but it's something like, darn it, No Editor or something like that. It's basically somebody has already built a blogging platform similar to WordPress using Avalanche and IPFS, where you host all of your assets out on the decentralized web, and it's censorship resistant. So what that means is simply that in the same way that there's no way that the government can take down Bitcoin or Avalanche or any other decentralized network simply because they would have to go to every single house and turn off every single computer. right? It's not practical. These technologies emerged going all the way back to the 60s and 70s, even the 50s, and they were created around the end of the Cold War with the idea being we want an infrastructure that is completely resistant to being taken down. So if somebody nukes the entire West Coast, we need to know that the East Coast still works. And so these networks are just like the web, they're built by nature to be censorship resistant, but there are central choke points in the architecture of the existing web. So the decentralized web removes that and simply says, okay, well, instead of Amazon hosting all of my images, so the police or the feds or the government or whoever wants to censor it can go to Amazon and say, take this down. Instead, it's just hosted out there, decentralized on the cloud, and there's no one single choke point to take it down. So that's kind of like the vision of the decentralized web. From the developer experience, it's still the same thing. You're just pushing out your assets to the cloud. Instead of under the hood, instead of them going to Amazon, they're now going to Filecoin or IPFS. And then from the user experience of the person consuming it, it's the same as well, because there's plugins now for your browser, which will just allow you to surf IPFS assets. And so that is the vision of the decentralized web, and it's empowered by Avalanche at the very base layer simply by paying for these resources using Avax.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jessica. All right, sorry.
Hey guys, thank you very much again for organizing one of these meetings. It's, as always, is very useful, and thank you for everything that you're doing. I have two questions. Number one is about governance. I know this has been, discussed in the past. Now that we're in mainnet, now that we have some good track record, do you have any timelines as to, when the governance proposal or the government structure is going to go live? And then what will it look like? If you could just give us an overview, that would be valuable. The reason why I'm asking is I have a good amount of friends and family who got stuck below the 2,000 minimum stake requirement threshold, and I think it will be nice to know when governance is coming so that we can put a proposal to reduce the min stake. The second question I'll also throw out there: what do you think about running nodes on mobile devices? I think I have seen something super old from one of Gun's presentations a while ago where this was proposed as a possibility. And I'd love to hear, I guess, from Gabriel about his thoughts on if this is possible, and if it is, what it takes, and if you as Ava Labs need to do anything on it.
I can jump in, but was there a first part? Did anybody else want to take the first part?
Yeah, I think unfortunately with the first part, there's no real. I don't think there's a public timeline for governance just yet, though instead of giving a non-answer, I'd like to give somewhat of a solution. I think one of the most interesting platforms that exist pre-governance is the Avalanche Forum. And the Avalanche Forum was created primarily to house technical discussions that wasn't just a single feed like it is in Discord. And we're seeing a lot of traction. I know, sorry, you're on there here and there, so I see you chime in. And so I think that platform might be a good place to start ideating on some proposals, especially with the 2,000 AVAX requirement for the validators. I think that's definitely one of the most frequent requests that we hear in the community. And then I think the reason why I'm suggesting this is because naturally you're going to have governance come live whenever it does. And when that does happen, it probably makes most sense to rely on conversations that was had prior. And if you already have a lot of people keen on a certain amount, say it's like 1,000 AVAX or whatever it may be, then you're going to already have the ball rolling. And so once it's live, you can actually execute the vote and change those parameters or to whatever the consensus is for that.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, regarding the second part of the question, so yeah, Goon recently said in a presentation, it's on my Twitter feed a couple weeks back, I quoted that exact quote, and it was a presentation that was recent. So this is his recent thoughts on this. Is he said something like, I'm paraphrasing, but he literally, the very first part was definitely the goal of my life. That's how he started out. So he said something like, the goal of my life is that people can run Avalanche on their phones all around the world. So I know, at least with regards to Goon's current thinking, yeah, the intention is to ultimately empower devices about as powerful as a phone. Because of course, a phone is a supercomputer from 35 years ago. You know what I mean? So the hardware that's in our pockets is outrageous. It's thousands of times more powerful than all of the computing power that sent a man to the moon in the 60s. And so, and there's so much innovation from the software side. Like, for example, our full node is written in Go. And I think, I forget, but Steven was recently showing me, Steven's one of our lead devs, and he was showing me stepping out, somehow being able to have Go clients connect to millions of each other all at once, because we were talking about this exact same thing. Ultimately, where we're headed as a world is the Internet of Things. We're moving to where everything is going to be smart. And so in that world, everything is wired together, and it makes sense to run Avalanche on as much stuff as possible. Now, that being said, there's always an internal battle. Like recently, we removed our tutorials related to running Avalanche on a Raspberry Pi, because recently it hasn't been working that well on a Raspberry Pi. But I myself am a huge fan of the Raspberry Pi. I build 3D printers, and so I'm lobbying for us to add that tutorials back. It's ultimately just a software innovation thing. Our software stack will get more performant. Go will improve as a language, and we'll ultimately be able to support more devices. We'll be able to use more than one core. And so, yeah, I think ultimately Goon is recently saying his goal in life is for everybody to be able to run Avalanche on their phone. We're definitely headed to a world where everything is wired, the Internet of Things. And so in that world, I see Avalanche running on everything.
Awesome. So I guess the other takeaway here is I need to watch your Twitter feed a little bit more carefully. Thank you.
Thanks, Gab. Thanks, Sari. Ilyas, you're next.
I'm Ilyas from Switzerland. I'm a software engineer, and I'm also happy Avalanche validator. I'm also using Pangolin Exchange several times a week. I'm really happy with that, and I really like it. My question is about Bitcoin on Avalanche. So basically, I'm thinking about use cases for Avalanche, and I see that like almost all the platforms, blockchain platforms, trying to address Ethereum's market, smart contracts, etc. Whereas Bitcoin is staying there unaddressed. I think Avalanche's exchange would be a perfect place for making Bitcoin a liquid asset that is spendable. So if Avalanche allowed, for example, people to spend Bitcoin on the Avalanche and buy a coffee, for example, in a completely decentralized way, it would be a big achievement for Avalanche, and it would really provide a good image of Avalanche in the crypto space. So I'm thinking, basically my question is there any plan to bring BTC, Bitcoin on the Avalanche network, like similar to Ethereum to Avalanche bridge?
I think I have one part of the answer. Maybe Gabriel might have a little bit more details on the VM side. But actually with Ethereum, you can bring Bitcoin over. It's not Bitcoin native Bitcoin, but it is kind of a wrapped asset. So I don't know, Elias, how familiar you are with Ethereum, but it seems like you probably are based on your involvement with Pangolin as an AMM, and then of course Uniswap as the leading AMM on the Ethereum side. You effectively have a bunch of these wrapped Bitcoin assets. So you have actually wrapped Bitcoin. And funny enough, I was on the founding team of that prior to my role at Ava Labs. And that has done tremendously well in terms of volume and liquidity. And so that's really cool to see. I think one of the biggest criticisms that we used to get, and I think is still true, is how it's being minted, just because it is quote unquote centralized to a certain number of merchants, I believe is what we were formerly calling them. But then on the other hand, you have a project like Ren Project, and Ren Project has Ren, I think it's called Ren BTC, or I don't know what the naming convention is, but they have their own wrapped asset, and I'm pretty sure they are fully trustless. And so you have other variations of these hybrid versions of, I think, the two examples I gave, and then of course on both sides as well. And so you can bring Ethereum-based Bitcoin on through the bridge. I think one of the things that maybe Gabriel can touch on is running I guess, VM instances of any blockchain where you're effectively leveraging Avalanche as kind of the tech layer underneath it all.
Yes. By the way, I didn't know that you were on the Raptor BTC team. That's pretty cool, Jay. So yes, we are actually in the works now. I have a meeting right after this to create a virtual machines for BCH and BTC. So the way we created our C chain, which is an instance of the EVM, is Geth is written in Go, and our full node Avalanche is written in Go. So we're able to just wrap the Geth and remove Nakamoto consensus and plug in what's called Snowman consensus. So everybody knows Avalanche consensus, but there's a variant of Avalanche consensus called Snowman consensus, which is for linear blockchains. So basically it's Avalanche consensus, but there's a rule in there that says there can only be one parent and there can only be one child. So that forces a linear chain, and that's how we're able to do Avalanche consensus on linear blockchains. So anyway, the point being, we're following the same model, and there is a full node in Go called BTCD, and there's a fork of it called BCHD, and we're effectively going to wrap that and create Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash subnets, and then we're going to do what's called an initial subnet offering, where we're going to be airdropping the entire UTXO set of BTC onto this new Bitcoin subnet, and then it'll be a full-blown Bitcoin virtual machine. So you'll get pay to pub key hash and pay to script hash, SegWit, multi-sig, op return. You'll get the actual underlying script language, but then we'll rip off Nakamoto consensus and we'll put on top of it Snowman consensus. So you'll be able to get sub-second finality. So that's all in the works right now. So yeah, I think what you're talking about is in the works. We definitely obviously see Bitcoin as a huge opportunity on Avalanche, and we're going to create a full-blown VM and then do an initial subnet offering to give the network life.
And then just adding on top of all that innovative stuff, without going into too much detail, I can just say stay tuned. You'll be hearing some more about that.
I look forward to learning more about it.
Thanks, Elias. Cheers. So anyone from the crowd who hasn't raised their hand and want to ask a question, please do so. We had some really good questions. Anybody else? Okay, so guys, if there are no other questions, anybody on the panel have anything else to say? We've had a good 45, almost 50 minutes now. Otherwise, we can just call it off.
Yeah, I think maybe I have a suggestion. We could maybe talk about some of the things that we've been working on recently. We're probably going to ramp up this type of activity more and more, especially on platforms like Clubhouse, so we can make sure that everybody who's interested in learning more can learn more. But I also know that crypto moves at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and even in the last week or so, a lot of things have theoretically changed in the Avalanche ecosystem. If people haven't seen any of the social accounts in recent 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we've onboarded a lot of staking solutions just to maximize the ease of use on that end, so people can start staking. Of course, like Sari mentioned earlier, if you were there for his question, the fee for being a validator, or rather not the fee, but the minimum requirement is 2,000 AVAX, which unfortunately, due to some price fluctuations, becomes a little bit prohibitive. So that's with these other solutions that are coming online, you can also actually delegate your stake and not necessarily go the validating route. And a lot of these services, which are easy to use front ends, can really make that process easy instead of requiring technical knowledge to set up your own node and such. On the other hand, I know there's a lot of DeFi projects that have set dates publicly to start deploying their applications on Avalanche, and because of the Avalanche Ethereum bridge, which launched in early February, a lot of this is now made a lot more easy to these projects, because a lot of these projects usually start their kind of blockchain journey on Ethereum, just because Ethereum was first mover advantage when it comes to smart contracts. But now that there's a bunch of chains that are available, It's all a matter of trying to figure out how best to transport that liquidity across instead of requiring these projects to have to originate new liquidity. And that's a lot of the activity that we're trying to facilitate with the partnerships and integrations and such, especially in the last 3 weeks as well.
Thanks, Jay. I think we have maybe quick time for 2 more questions, and then we're done. Matthew.
Hi, this is Matthew. Thanks for bringing me on. And by the way, Gabriel, it's great to see you. We met at meetup with Rocky, Blockchain and Brews. So my question is, yeah, I have familiarity with the Avalanche protocol, and really like the promise of high throughput and the flexibility to work with many different applications and functions. This might be a bit of a rudimentary question, but yeah, I think it might be helpful to ask is, which crypto wallets do you recommend when we want to work with AVAX and use the Avalanche protocol? And also from the US, are there particular crypto exchanges that are best for trading and availability with AVAX?
Who wants to take this, guys?
So sorry, Matthew, your second question was about regarding exchanges, you were saying?
Yeah, I just got a notification. The signal's a little poor on my side. So yeah, I was wondering about recommended crypto wallets for working with the Avalanche protocol and AVAX, as well as any sort of exchanges for US users that you all support or think have good integrity.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So maybe for the exchange side, this isn't so much of a recommendation, but just stating what is out there. There are 2 names that come to mind. Voyager, which is a brokerage actually, and they're licensed in the US. I believe they have restrictions in New York though, just because of the BIT license, which is essentially, without going too much into depth of that, it's a fairly prohibitive piece of legislation that was passed like 5 to 10 years ago, or in the early Bitcoin days. And then on the other hand, there's also more recently OKCoin, and OKCoin is actually a full order book exchange. I think they also actually have New York restrictions to do the same reasons, or maybe not. I actually can't remember. But I think those are the 2 venues that support AVAX, and so that's a good place to start. On the wallet side, we do have the Avalanche wallet, and that's at wallet.avax.network. I know Gabriel might have a little bit more insight as to what may be better for the testing environment, but the Avalanche wallet does also connect to the test network as well, especially since, Matthew, you mentioned that you're a developer, so that may be kind of the first area that you'll start exploring.
Oh, by the way, I'm not a developer, but I did meet Gabriel at a kind of developer-focused meetup.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I think Avalanche. Then that changes a little bit. Then I think Avalanche Wallet is a good place to start. Also Ledger. So if you have a Ledger Nano S, you can also custody AVAX that way as well.
I'd also just jump on to what Jay was saying. I definitely follow our Avalanche and Ava Labs Twitter for any announcements coming up for a number of wallets that we're actually currently integrating with that can make it easier for you to interact with Avalanche. We have announced that Frontier wallet, it's a DeFi aggregator, is going to be coming online soon, so that's public. You'll be able to trade AVAX and then eventually stake and then do a lot of other cool stuff and interact with DeFi protocols on Frontier. But we do have several other kind of self-custody wallets coming out, and then on the exchange side, you'll hear about those definitely when they come out. So we're excited for that.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thank you, Jay and John.
Thanks, Matthew. All right, so last question, Ursh.
Hello, I am mobile developer. I am new to blockchain. Actually, I have several questions. If you don't answer all, it's okay. First is about what's your top vision? Actually, it is close to Ilya's question. Do you see a cooperation with Ethereum in the future? Because as far as I know, Mr. Emin worked with Ethereum team previously, and to solve Ethereum's problem, he created the Avalanche platform. in the future, do you see a cooperation with Ethereum to solve, for example, scaling issue, gas fee issue, such things? And second question, I'm also really interested in NFT space. Origin Protocol makes some auctions, NFT auctions, and break recording sales I saw. And do you planning such a platform selling NFTs like the shop, NFT shop, or a way to create an auction in as a D app, for example? Also, do you want to collaborate with influencers or digital art creators to make NFT via Avalanche platform? And as far as I see, only URL and some JSON data you can provide to create NFT. Do you want to improve? What's your vision about NFT space? Thank you.
Okay, so if I caught those, the first question is, do you see cooperation between Avalanche and Ethereum? The second question was regarding NFTs. Do we envision ourselves having a marketplace for them? And second question, do we want to work with influencers? And then the last question was, do we want to improve the NFT data space from just JSON and whatever else it is? Those are the three questions. So the first question, obviously Jay or John or Sinan just cut me off, of course. Anytime you guys want to weigh in, I'm just going to tackle these and we'll get the ball rolling. So yes, I think in a general sense, we work on open source computer science. And so in that regard, yeah, there's endless cooperation between ourselves and Ethereum. I know Goon has been vocal multiple times about us not being an Ethereum killer. You know, people always are putting Avalanche, the new Ethereum killer, blah, blah, blah. And I've heard him say multiple times, that's not how we view ourselves. That's not how we are putting ourselves out there. That's somebody else projecting that. So I think in the general sense of computer science and the open source hacker mentality, sure, there's endless cooperation between ourselves. I myself, I'm like in awe of Vitalik and that entire crew. I respect people who are competent and who change the world in a radical way, and you know, they check off all the boxes. So I think there will always be cooperation between ourselves and them. There's competition in the sense that we solve a lot of the same problems. So that's just the nature of the beast. But yeah, I think there's always cooperation. The second one, so you know, we're Ava Labs. We create the technology. We don't necessarily create the implementations. So I don't suspect that we will probably have a marketplace for NFTs, but I know that there's multiple, you know, deals in the flow, and I won't say anything. I can see John grinding his teeth right now. Shut up, Gabriel. There's like multiple, I think, NFT marketplace kind of conversations happening, and then I suspect that's just going to be huge. Our C chain is about to go crazy. There is so much action happening on our C chain that in 3 to 6 months it's going to be just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And so the second one is, do we want to work with influencers? You know, I don't know about that. That's Jay's thing. And then the last one, and then I'll pass the mic to Jay, is do we want to improve the thing? Right now, presumably you're talking about our NFT creator and our web wallet. I think it by default lets you put in a JSON object and maybe a URL or something. Yeah, if you check out the Avalanche JS code, we have a NFT payload creator class, and it has like 32 or 33 different data types that it supports out of the box. But really, you know, an NFT is just a 1 KB of arbitrary data. It can be whatever you want. And so, you know, really it's up to you. But sure, I think already we support 32 different data types, and I'm open to supporting whatever. All right, passing the mic away.
I'll jump in real quick before Jay can kind of wrap it up, I think, for us. And I'll give you a perfect example in terms of our cooperation with Ethereum or working with Ethereum-based applications. So I think you'll see in the next coming months new dApps that are launched on Avalanche, but that are launched both on Avalanche and on Ethereum simultaneously. So we are supporting a lot of new projects from developers. Because if you build on Ethereum, you launch on Ethereum. If you build on Avalanche C-Chain, you can deploy on both simultaneously. And we're happy to give people the opportunity to utilize Avalanche or Ethereum or both. There's a reason we built a bridge or we supported a bridge. is because we believe in interoperability. We believe that the future is going to be ultimately a multi-chain world, and that if we all work together at some basic level, that expanding this ecosystem and this market that we're all in benefits all of us. Different chains will have different use cases, but for the most part, on the dApp level, we are supporting a lot of new and innovative kind of projects that are going to be launching both on us and on Ethereum. We're also seeing a lot, I think you mentioned corporations, a lot of interest from people who would normally have wanted to work on Ethereum, it's just too slow or too expensive for their use cases. If it's transferring data or very simple kind of uses, it doesn't make sense for them to be paying such high gas fees for such small transactions. So there is a large interest there from that grouping as well. And then yes, Gabriel caught me on the NFT stuff. I would just stay tuned. We're talking to a lot of people. We're also building a lot of cool stuff. So in due time, all of that will kind of come out. And Jay, I'll turn it over to you.
Nice.
I think one quick plug for the NFT side that I would mention, Origin Protocol, we're all fairly well tied with that project. So I know you mentioned them as a name, but in terms of marketplaces, another project that we've been closely working with for almost a year now is Polyant Games. And Polyant Games has a NFT decentralized exchange called Polyant Dex, and that is going to be on Avalanche in some time in the future, TBD on exactly when that will be. And so right now, while everyone is kind of getting caught up in NFT mania a little bit, it seems like a lot of people, I would say 90% of the conversations that we're having are focused on NFT origination and creation, and not so much actually what you can actually do with that, perhaps on a value transfer perspective, or some of the things that perhaps like a project like Aave on Ethereum is doing, where they're actually using NFTs as part of their lending mechanisms, because NFTs actually hold value and they're able to be transferred peer-to-peer very seamlessly. So I think once a lot of the NFT activity starts to taper off a little bit, and people are less excited about actually originating NFTs, I think we're going to see a lot of really cool ideas come online, and that's where we're hoping to take the conversations next.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Well, this wraps it up. We had a really good conversation. So thank you to the panelists, and thank you for everyone for joining. Let's definitely do a next one next week or the following week. And yeah, looking forward to it. So, all right. Ciao.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.